2017 was a big year for Dragon Ball Super. During it, we witnessed the beginning of the Tournament of Power, the multiversal tournament that was teased over a year prior. And it's been quite a roller coaster of action and quality along the way. Now with both this tournament and 2017 finally nearing their conclusion, many are wondering what 2018 will bring for Dragon Ball Super and the greater Dragon Ball franchise. So what are 5 things we want to see from Dragon Ball Super in 2018? Well, in this video, we're going to list them off. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Alright guys, so in this video, we are going to be breaking down 5 things we want to see from Dragon Ball Super in 2018. And there really has been a lot that transpired within 2017 that, made for some big waves and some big motion in the Dragon Ball franchise as a whole. So introducing my guest today, who is going to join me on this list. You've seen him in my videos in the past, and he hates when I introduce him like that, but his name is...
I hate when you introduce me like that, bro. We haven't done one of these in a while. These top 5s, we used to do like split channel ones, but there's just not enough for this list. But let's talk about it.
Okay, so the first one I want to get into on this list is something that, at least for me is a big deal. For some people, they've kind of accepted that it might not be too big of a deal. But that is, I want to see more consistency and power scaling that makes more sense in Dragon Ball Super. Now, the Tournament of Power could have been like a great opportunity, I feel like, to really create more defiant scaling. You have the weaker human characters, you have like maybe Super Saiyan level characters, for current Goku and Vegeta, and then you have like the top tier badass like Super Saiyan Blue level and above. However, this tournament seems like it's really been all over the place in terms of that, and also like certain things like the Mafuba I feel like might not necessarily work the way that they originally were intended to work. But again, I want to see more consistency, more of that internal logic not being contradicted, and just knowing how strong characters are relative to one another.
Yeah, I just think the main point to kind of summarize all your points is better writing, pretty much better writing. And for those who don't understand how this works, so there's probably some out there that still don't get it, Toriyama's involvement in Super is nowhere close to how it was back in the day. Back in the day, you had the original manga. It's no different than Harry Potter or any of these other movie adaptations, Lord of the Rings, where you have the original writer's work, then you adapt it. Here with Dragon Ball Super, there is no original manga. Toyotaro and Toei have their own set of writers. In Toyotaro's case, it is Toyotaro, the manga. And the anime has a group of writers and they each take turns writing different episodes. And the problem with that is, like we just saw with Star Wars, is you have different directors with different visions, and thus you have inconsistency.
Yeah.
Toriyama just writes a really basic outline of the story, really basic bullet points, and then the writers pick it up from there. And that's the problem. That's why Dragon Ball and Z seem so much more consistent. So I think what they have to do is, if they can't get Toriyama to write an entire story, hire a legitimate showrunner who's going to take those ideas, put it together, and then feed the writers what to do. I think they need organization. They really need this. And so does Star Wars too, ironically enough. They both need it, but that's a different video.
Yeah, and both of them really, would benefit greatly from having that organization. But what's the next thing that we want to see that's on this list?
Well, on this list, I think you wrote more awesome fights and animation. And I think that we're going to get that in the climactic moments of the Tournament of Power, as well as whatever arc comes next. I have seen some people online talk about how they want Yuya Takahashi, to become the animation supervisor. I don't see that happening because he's a freelance animator, but I do think that Yuya Takahashi doing more frequent Dragon Ball work, I think, is fantastic. He is the best animator they have. He draws the best episodes. He's unbelievable with the kind of work he does working with the other animation teams, and I really want him to come back and do every major fight. I wish he would be the permanent anime supervisor, but we're talking about a lot of money, and he's a freelance guy. He doesn't have that kind of time, but him coming in every few weeks, I think, would be better, my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the big things I will say about the Tournament of Power and Dragon Ball Super thus far. It's really just gotten better and better in terms of how it looks, in terms of how it sounds, in terms of the art and animation.
It has gotten better.
Just imagine if this show keeps running for like another year, just how amazing everything could look. You know, that's something I'm really looking forward to in 2018, seeing how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that with the upcoming movie we have in a year, I think they are going to get some good animators on that because the movies have a more production value, so we'll see.
Okay, so the next one we're going to be talking about is something that is really important, I feel like, at least from my point of view, and it's something that you suggested, Danny, and that is more backstories and a possible guidebook. Now, I've mentioned this in the past that I really want to see a guidebook for Dragon Ball Super, you know, something that will at least put a lot of people's minds at rest about, like, how strong are certain forms, like, how do these powers work, how does God Ki work really relative to normal Ki, aside from you can't sense it and you power it up within your body, you know? A lot of the internal mechanics of Dragon Ball Super and the concepts they've introduced, I think would be great, because Dragon Ball Super isn't exactly Hunter x Hunter, where every single episode they'll break down literally every single thing that happened in the fight, how it makes sense relative to one another, strategies, everything like that, you know? So if you put in a book, you know, at least it's better. It's kind of like Star Wars, like we mentioned, where it should be in the main thing. We should get an explanation in the show itself, but, you know, like, those extra materials help a little bit.
No, and I agree. We've gotten these guidebooks years ago, and usually they come out after the series is already over, so maybe after Super ends we'll get them, but the point is that Super has a lot of unanswered questions, and that's actually the fault of the writers of Dragon Ball Super. But I think that, and I'm not in any way saying the guidebooks are going to make the writing of Super magically better, but there are so many unanswered questions about Trunks and his, you know, his rage form and a lot of the lore behind these other universes, and if they put out a guidebook that goes into the other universes more in depth, I think that people would eat that up. And it sucks because these guidebooks only come out in Japan, and we've only had a translation of one of them in this country, and I really hope that we get translations of these too, because it's necessary for Super, I think, even more than Dragon Ball and Z, because there's just too many unanswered questions. And again, I'm not saying that a guidebook's going to make Super better, but I think as a hardcore fan, you're going to want to read what it says.
Yeah, it's like, to make a kind of controversial association, it's like the Star Wars prequels, where so much goes unexplained in the prequels, but then we have like the Clone Wars and other things that fill in those blanks and kind of give more context to where they seem better from that overall worldview, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily fix what happened in the prequels.
Yeah, exactly. It fixes it, but the problem is the movies by themselves still have problems, but like the overall kind of overarching story is better. So that's exactly right. That's pretty much the same thing.
Absolutely. So what's the next one we're going to get into on this list?
Well, what I have here is new spin-off / anime or manga. And really this year what we've had is the Yamcha manga, which was fun, but it was kind of a total side story. Not anything too crazy. There's other stuff that came out too that nobody really covered, like Dragon Ball Heroes has a couple of mangas, like their Victory Mission manga, for example. There's stuff that's out there, but nobody really cares too much about it. I think what you're referring to is more of a Dragon Ball Super spin-off where we get like maybe TV specials covering the backstories of Jiren and Hit and these guys, or possibly a manga that covers it. I talked about this in a video that similar to the one we're doing. I think I did it with Dino last year about how I wanted this. Like, there's so much room now with this new Dragon Ball room. I feel like they should be putting this stuff out at least once every few months.
Yeah, that's something I've really been excited about for the Dragon Ball franchise since they announced the whole Dragon Ball room and they announced that they were looking into these kind of spin-offs. I was a little disappointed that like the first one it seemed like we got was like a Yamcha related one, even though like I know a lot of people did find that funny. But for me, like if they do a spin-off of Super, like we get Hit's 1000 years, or we get like backstory on different universes, or we see like the Pride Troopers have like a fun little special or a spin-off manga. Like there's so many different directions they can go in, even if these characters don't even exist anymore after the next arc, that I feel like would be really cool to delve into, because, you know, that's stuff I always really like about these various franchises I follow.
Yeah, I can't really argue that. I mean, I think it's money ready to be printed, and I hope that Viz can get the license to these things so we get them too.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. Or we could just get Herms on it right away.
Well, we're gonna have scanlators do it either way. Like, you can get the entire Yamcha manga scanlated. I'm not saying it's right, but you can get it online somewhere.
Okay, so that leaves us with one more thing that we really want to see in Dragon Ball Super in 2018, and what is that?
Well, yeah, this, what you wrote, which I agree with, I've been saying it for a while now, is a time skip to the end of Z or past the end of Z, aka the final 3 episodes of Dragon Ball Z, which is 289, 291, or the last chapter of the manga. And I think we're on the same page here as far as why. There's a lot of ways they can go after the Tournament of Power arc, but I think that going to the end of Z is going to create more drama, because we know that by the end of Z that everybody's going to be okay. And typically in Dragon Ball, everybody is okay, because Toriyama likes those happy endings, except for the Trunks arc.
Except for Trunks.
But, poor Trunks. But skipping past the end of Z, I think gives them a chance to, and this is what I've been saying for a year now, it gives them a chance to focus on the younger characters, maybe make the series revolve around Oob and Goten and Trunks, maybe if they grow up, or at least become teens. And, GT's already been erased, so just don't even worry about that. Just kind of tell the story correctly. I feel like with Tournament of Power, this is the way I'm seeing it, is this should be like the last hurrah for Master Roshi, Tenshinhan, Krillin, and Gohan, and maybe even Piccolo. Like, those characters got to shine in this tournament, and this is like their last big, like, goodbye to the fan base. Like, we're done with it. This is like their last big shine, and then we move on to the next generation. And hopefully, unlike Last Jedi, they'll pass the torch correctly, on to the next generation. I'm not saying to get rid of Goku and Vegeta. I'm saying make them in the series, but you don't have to focus on Tien or these guys ever again, because now you have a new generation to focus on and build off of it.
I think a really cool idea, if they still kind of want to use those characters, though, is to give them more like Master Roshi kind of positions, like maybe Goten and Trunks, and maybe even Pan and Oob. One of the things they end up doing is they go to train under like Master Roshi, like Goku and Krillin did, or they go to kind of like, train under Tien and Krillin, these characters that, we used to be so strong, but now we're a little bit too old, so we have to take up this position. I think that'd be a good kind of transition point, even if they become less and less important, as long as it's basically not just Goku, Pan, and the boring version of Trunks, like going into space and fighting worms and stuff like they did in GT. I think it'll probably be a lot better.
No, I agree. I mean, it doesn't even have to be about them anymore, because you've introduced new characters now. You have Kaba, you have Caulifla and Kale, you have Hit, you have new characters now. So you could have Oob screw GT. You could have Oob integrate with these new characters. You can have Goten and Trunks integrate with Kaba. You could do things. I think you have more creative reign. Or if you want to go back to freaking Krillin and Piccolo, you can do that too. I mean, it just gives them more options instead of being stuck in this damn 10-year time skip.
Exactly. There's so much more potential and so much more options for growth and different storylines and tension and really everything that we want from this series if they go past this time skip. And I don't know if they're going to in the next arc or even the next coming year. Hopefully they don't try and compress like a whole other year of a show into like a few extra years or whatever it's supposed to be. But I really am looking forward to them finally going past this Oob stuff, or finally getting to Oob and seeing what comes next, because that's really one of the big things I've been wanting ever since they even started talking about more Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's time to do that now. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. What are 5 things you want to see from Dragon Ball Super in 2018? Check out Geekdom101 in the end screen and the description. And as I always say, stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Wow, the only thing I want is more Harold videos in 2018.
In the next episode of Chapter. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to talk about that.